Hi everyone, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be discussing what a BTI actually is, a binding tariff information. Why would you need one? What is it? We're going to drill down into all of this. So welcome to another video of Customs Manager. Hey, we're excited to be talking about customs to you, and today we're going to talk about BTI's binding tariff information. It is an essential tool for the precise classification of your product. Customs classification is so important. So let's explore what the benefits actually are. So the key points that you need to know about is that BTI is a legally binding decision of the EU customs authority, one of the member states, so Germany or Portugal, and it provides legal certainty of the correct commodity code that you need to be using when you import or export into the EU or out of the EU. And as you guessed it, we can support you on all matters of BTI applications. This is done exclusively online, and we've done many of those, and we can help you. So if you're looking for BTI, you can come and check us out on customsmanager.org. And then on the top right, there's a call button that says book an expert call. And you can just reach out, and then we can discuss your BTI needs. So let's talk about BTIs a little bit more. You know that locating a customs tariff code, a commodity code, HS code can be feverishly complicated, and mistakes can happen, and it is very time consuming, especially if you have multiple products. And you may face, of course, some proceedings by the customs authorities if you get it wrong and they suspect that you don't really know what customs classification is or how it works. So how do you make sure you get the right commodity code if you're not a customs expert or a customs commodity code expert, or you have a very complex product that you're not sure, it could be this, could be that? Well, then you go for a BTI. And a BTI is a binding tariff information. It is a written, legally binding decision by a customs authorities in the US authority in the European Union on the items that are imported into the EU or exported out of the EU. Basically, it gives you legal certainty. It is not a mandatory requirement to get a BTI, but it guarantees you, once you have it, what the commodity code is. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to classify. You don't need to argue with the customs authorities later on when they come to challenge you on it. It tells you what the exact product classification is. It talks to you also by means of the commodity code. It then tells you what the tariff rate is you've got to pay, and if there are any EU import or export licenses that may need to apply. So you do want to know that first. You want to make sure this is the correct commodity code, and if you're unsure, you might want to go for a BTI. There is also the word of advanced tariff ruling, or ATR, that's used in the UK. So if you're watching this from the UK or from any other jurisdiction, you might know this as ATR. Advanced tariff information rulings, and BTIs, binding tariff information rulings, basically are the same. I mean, the details of the law can change a little bit, but the principles are basically agreed at international level. So therefore, again, legal certainty, whether you call it one or you call it the other, doesn't really matter. What you want is the customs authority to tell you what the commodity code is, so you don't need to worry about it. So obviously, this has already told you what the benefits of this BTI are. You have legal certainty. You don't need to worry about it anymore. And because different jurisdictions have different tariffs and different rules regarding import and export procedures, it's so important that you get the tariff classification correct. And I'm telling you, if you got the wrong classification code and you realize too late that you need an import license, but the customer's waiting for your goods and you can't import because you don't have that import license, because you got the commodity code wrong, you'll very quickly realize the value of a BTI and making sure that you classify these products correctly and clearly in the eyes of not only yourselves, but also customs authorities, because in the end, they are the ones that are letting the goods in. So they need to believe you that the customs classification, commodity code, HTS code, HS code, CN code is the correct one. So there's lots of savings in terms of time, in terms of money that you could be obtaining by getting a BTI. As I've already said, and this is some of the questions that you've been asking me, it's not a legal requirement, but it might be beneficial for you to get one. And don't forget, there are different steps to this. So the BTI, as I said, is a legally enforceable document. This might be too much for you at this point. You might wish to just get an unofficial first opinion from the authorities, in which case look out if your authority has some sort of helpline that you can contact. So, for example, the UK and Ireland, they operate this. Germany, I think, does it too. And so you contact the authorities, say, hey, I've got this product. What do you think? Unofficially, they'll tell you what the next steps are. And they can ask for things like, can you send me a picture? Can you give me a sample? Can you tell me more about the characteristics of the product? And then they will be able to advise whether they can tell you an unofficial commodity code or if they are recommending a BTI. By the way, I made another video that tells you in about 20 to 30 minutes what the questions are that you should be asking when classifying a product. So these are very practical steps. The right question asked about every product will lead you to a proper classification. So why don't you go and check that out? BTIs are issued by the national customs authorities in the EU, and they are binding on the customs administration and you, the holder of the BTI. And you can use them not only in your country of jurisdiction, but also all across the EU. In the EU, BTIs are usually valid for 3 years, but don't forget, before that 3 years expires, you may wish to renew your BTI, and that means you need to reapply or at very least ask for an extension. And that can, of course, only happen if the fundamental characteristics, or actually the characteristics of the product, haven't changed. And in this fast-paced world where we improve, change products, it might very well be that a BTI actually is no longer valid because the characteristics of the products have changed, in which case you need to ask for a new BTI. Who's bound by the BTI? Well, as I said, it's you, the one who's asking for it, who's receiving it, and the customs administration. Big question, how much is a BTI? And the good news is a BTI is completely free. Well, having said that, there is staff costs of preparing the application. There is making sure you gather all the information, make sure you then manage the authorization once you've received a reply. And in case you do not get the response that you want, you might need to think about more communication with the customs authorities to have a discussion about the choices that they have made for you. So there's a bit of investment that needs to happen, but hey, so be it. Officially, there's no cost you have to pay for it. You can just apply online. And of course, if you're working with guys like me, who can help you with the BTI very seamlessly and get it done, then there is the cost of me. But don't forget, if we get a BTI going, which saves you customs duty, well, obviously, then that can go towards funding people like me. You want an expert to do this for you, someone who's done it many times before, at least the first time and the second time. And then you want to make sure that you've got someone who can manage that for you. So if you need someone to manage it for you, to run it for you, to remind you when the BTI is up, then we are doing that for you as well. How do you do it then? Practical steps as we want to get started. Well, again, you can look at all of this online as well, but I appreciate that you watch this video to learn how to do this. So in the EU, there are two ways you can do this. Either you go with a member state eBTI online application system. So countries like Croatia, Germany, don't let me lie, Portugal, France, Spain, Poland, they have their own national window by which you apply for a BTI. So go to the link that I've put in the blog entry associated with this video, and then you click on it, and this gets you to the application form. Other countries, other 20 plus EU member states, use the common EU eBTI system. And this is where you register and then you complete the application that way. And for the UK, for the advanced origin ruling, there's also a link to the website where you need to apply in the blog entry on customsmanager.info, which is our dedicated website for all information and intelligence on customs and global trade matters. So the steps to follow for a BTI is as such. You read the general information on applications for BTI, how to complete the application form. Again, link is down in the blog below. Connect to the relevant electronic trader portal, complete the BTI application form online and send it to the customs authorities in the EU where you're established or where you import/export the goods, depending on your situation. And then if you want to be successful, you need to make sure that you remember the following top tips. Only submit an application for a BTI if you're actually going to conduct an import or export in the near future. Don't forget, one product, one BTI application. Don't mix several products in one application. People will get really confused. Give a thorough description of the product, add pictures as samples so that people actually understand what it is, and that enables them to classify. So if you know what information people need to classify a product, well, you've got to improve that. And again, if you want to know what questions you need to ask, as I've said on YouTube, there's a video and you can always purchase the full version on www.customsmanager.org/shop. This is where you get to buy the video, which then tells you what all the questions is that you need to be asking in order to classify a product correctly. And make sure that the data that you submit is correct, is pertinent to the product, and is comprehensive. Any judgment or false information or insufficient information may render the BTI ineffective, and it may actually be revoked. And then you're going to get a possibility where you get a response back from the authorities that you didn't expect. So you might get a result where you thought, well, actually, I thought it was this product, this commodity code. And now the government, the customs have told me it's a different number. Oops, what do I do now? So there are ways that you can appeal this, or you can at least enter a communication. You have a right to be heard. And then there is a formal process to follow if you don't agree with the decision of the customs authorities. And again, we can help you with that. We can help you to formulate your questions and concerns and points in a way that is understandable for the customs authorities, as it then speaks the way that customs are expecting you to speak when we talk about customs classifications, which after all requires a certain language to be used. And you might want to check before you apply what customs have said in the past on products that look a bit like yours. And for this, we have a database that's really useful tool, one of the essential tools in customs classification. It's called an eBTI database, where you can see non-proprietary and non-commercially sensitive information about products that have been previously classified under a certain commodity code. So if you have a chemical, then you might want to check out the part where they've classified other chemicals like that, in order to see the direction of travel where this might be ending up. And the link to the database, again, is in the description below. So there you have it. I will conclude here. Again, all of this is written down in a blog entry that we have just recently published, so you might want to check that out, and the link is in the description below as well. Some of the tools that you can now use, as I said, there is a lot of guidance on classification, including guides on specific chapters of the HS that tell you how you should be classifying products, what is what commodity, what common commodity gets what commodity code. So you can check that out at customsmanager.info. You've got customs classification training that we offer. Please go to customsmanager.org/events for the latest times and dates of when we do that. Then, of course, there are on-demand guides and videos. I've already mentioned that. There's a classification guide that tells you about the questions that you should be asking. And that, again, is on customsmanager.org/shop. And then, of course, we offer this bespoke BTI service. And this is where we do it for you as much as you want. We apply for a BTI, for multiple BTI. We analyze your product range to see which BTIs are useful for you. And of course, we help you not only obtain a BTI and manage the application process relations with the customs, but also we make sure that when it's time to renew it, we will remind you. So you can see there's a lot that we can do together, and I hope you'll use this opportunity to reach out and let's have a personal one-to-one discussion about how we can help you with customs classification and also BTI service. So whether it's mass classification support in obtaining, retaining, and applying for BTIs or AOR as it may be, please schedule a call. The information is all in the description below. So pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. See you next time.